The Long Walk is a faithful adaptation of the Stephen King novel of the same name, even as it makes some big changes to the characters and ending. In both versions of The Long Walk, the plot focuses on a group of young men who take part in a dystopian endurance competition where the penalty for failure is death. The Long Walk's cast of characters is mostly true to their book counterparts, albeit with a bit more diversity baked into the modern portrayals. However, there are some notable differences made to the cast, all building to an ending that changes the final winner and his fate, even if it retains the bleak moral core of the original story. Garrity has a different motivation between the book and the movie. Cooper Hoffman and other boys turning around and looking shocked in The Long Walk. Custom image by Yaelin Chacon. Garrity is the main character in both versions of The Long Walk, but has very different motivations in both versions of the story. In the film, Garrity eventually reveals to McVriz that he entered the competition for a chance to reach the Major. Having seen the Major kill his father years beforehand, Garrity wants revenge. This gives Garrity's dogged determination a harsher edge and makes his regret upon seeing his mother all the more heartbreaking. However, it's also a big difference from the book, where the Major doesn't have such a direct connection to Garrity. Although both versions of Garrity lost their father to the Major's regime, it's much more personal in the movie. In the book, Garrity admits his father was squad and taken away by the Secret. In contrast, the movie version of Garrity witnesses his father, defiant in the face of the Major, be executed in the street. As opposed to his desire for wealth in the book, this gives the movie Garrity revenge as a primary motivation. Garrity doesn't have a girlfriend in the movie. David Johnson holding on to a distressed Cooper Hoffman in The Long Walk. In the movie, Garrity's major emotional connection outside of The Long Walk is his mother. She is the one who drops him off at the beginning of the race, and who he sees when the walk eventually reaches his hometown of Freeport. While Garrity's mother does have a minor role in the book, the more overt relationship Garrity has is with his girlfriend. January Jan is the person that Garrity sees in Freeport in the book, and whom he eventually collapses into when they reach the town. In both versions of the story, McVriz is the one who saves Garrity by pulling him away. However, in the novel, it's made clearer that Garrity has fully lost any hope of winning by that point and even intends to let himself be killed. In the movie, Garrity's reunion with his mother is emotional but doesn't come with that overt self-destructive element. The movie cut Scram and gave his wife to Hank. The Long Walk, 2025, Screen Rant cover story image. One of the more notable walkers in the book is Scram, who is established early on as the Vegas odds favorite to win the entire competition. Scram also has a pregnant wife, which he initially believes will motivate him to victory. However, he develops pneumonia and ends up allowing himself to die after the others promise to provide for his family. Scram is cut entirely from the movie version of The Long Walk, with many elements of the character split between Hank Olson and Stebbins. Hank is the one who is given a wife back home, although the film doesn't reveal if she's pregnant. This reveal comes after he's already died, although the group still vows to provide for her. Stebbins has his physical traits amplified somewhat, taking on Scram's strength, speed, and endurance. He is also the one who gets sick during the walk, preventing him from actually becoming the winner. Although it's not clear if it's pneumonia, Stebbins ends up suffering a similar fate to the book version of Scram. Hank Olson's death is even more horrifying in the book. Ben Wang, Cooper Hoffman, and the ensemble walking in The Long Walk. Hank Olson is one of the more talkative members of The Long Walk's cast, and in the movie, he's one of the first characters the audience has really connected with to die. Although their deaths are fairly similar in both versions, the book takes things even further. In both versions of the story, Olson is left almost catatonic by the walk. Eventually reaching his limit, Olson makes a scene by attacking the soldiers, getting him shot. In the movie, Olson is left on the street to bleed out instead of being put out of his misery, serving as a warning for the other walkers about potential revolts. In the book, however, Olson initially ignores the gunshot wounds he suffers and keeps trying to move forward. This results in him being shot several more times, with Olson explicitly still walking even as his intestines are hanging out of his body. It's only after he collapses that he dies, at which point he's shot again to ensure he's dead. Stebbins gets Scram's final fate instead of his book death. The Long Walk Stebbins. Stebbins has the same motivation in both versions of The Long Walk, but his fate is different. In both, Stebbins is the bastard son of the Major. Having been born out of wedlock, he's been ignored by the military commander. Stebbins intends to win The Long Walk so he can use the wish to force his father to acknowledge him. In the book, Stebbins is the last person to fall before the end of The Long Walk. Garrity is only walking by this point because of the dark figure he sees in the distance, the sight of which terrifies Stebbins and causes him to die of fright. It's a sudden and unexpected demise for Stebbins, who seemed unstoppable. By contrast, the movie changes the ending, and the dark figure is removed. Instead, Stebbins is the second-to-last person to die in the movie, eventually developing the fatal illness that took down Scram in the book and revealing his origins before giving the others advice and allowing himself to die. McVriz is a lot meaner of a character in the book. The Long Walk. Garrity McVriz. Peter McVriz is one of the main characters in The Long Walk, but the movie makes the character far more sympathetic than his book equivalent. In both versions of the story, McVriz is snarky and quick-witted. However, his book version is far crueler in his verbal jabs, while the movie incarnation is more jovial and supportive of others. The origins of his scar are also very different. In the movie, McVriz reveals he got the scar after becoming an orphan and encountering a dangerous man, who slashed him with a knife and left him for dead. This is very different from the book, where the scar is eventually revealed to have been caused by McVriz's girlfriend, Priscilla. Although he claims to have loved Priscilla, McVriz reveals that their relationship turned sour and he tried to sexually assault her, prompting her to wound him with a letter opener. Removing this trait makes movie McVriz far more sympathetic. The film reveals McVriz doesn't have a girlfriend, putting more emphasis on the queer subtext of the character from the book. The vow to not help one another gets more people killed in the book. A character looking distressed in The Long Walk. In both versions of The Long Walk, the remaining contestants reluctantly agree to eventually stop helping each other. This turns out to be a short-lived promise in the movie, however, as the remaining musketeers of Garrity, McVriz, and Baker are quick to try to help each other when the latter starts to fade.